Welcome back to Inside Politics. We're talking with State Senator Jim Tracy. He's the chairman of the State Senate Transportation Committee. We've been talking a lot about transportation issues. We're going to pivot in this last segment and talk about many of the other issues that are coming up for the General Assembly when they come back here in January. Senator, it wouldn't be a session of the legislature in the last several years we didn't have a number of gun issues coming up. Most recently, after the tragic shooting out in Oregon and some of the others that have held in educational institutions, there are members, particularly in the Senate, who are looking at pushing a bill that would bring guns on campus, allow teachers at state colleges and universities to have gun permits and to wear those and take those guns into their classroom. Do you support that?
Well, I'm a pro-Second Amendment guy. I do think that that's something we definitely need to look at. If we're going to allow folks to do that, I think they need to have a little bit more than a carry permit. They need to have some training on that. I haven't talked to Senator Bell. I know he's the one that's talking about doing the bill, and I will discuss that with him. And he said he was thinking about it. Didn't say he was going to present a bill. He did say he was thinking about it.
Now, the Lieutenant Governor also has made a statement recently after the Oregon shooting that sort of urged Christians to be armed to make sure he feels that when he sees these shootings happen, these mass shootings, that somehow they're aimed primarily at Christians, and he thinks Christians ought to be going out and getting these permits and going armed. How did you react to that statement? Well,
I talked to him about it this week. I think he was reacting to the shooter in Oregon, like you said, that was calling out Christians and he was killing the Christians. And I think it's good for everybody to get the carry permit. I have mine, my wife has hers, and I think he was encouraging everyone to protect themselves. And I think in this particular environment we have today, I think that's what he was doing.
Now, one bastion of Christianity that I know of in the state government would be the members of the General Assembly. In that regard, last year the Senate passed a bill that would actually have allowed guns to be carried on the floor of the legislature and on the Capitol grounds. That was taken out of the bill before it was finally passed. Is that something the legislature is going to reconsider this year?
I hadn't heard anyone talk about it. You know, one thing about the Senate, we have armed state troopers around, so we have our armed people there, but I have not heard that. That would not surprise me if somebody didn't do that.
Now, another gun issue that has come up is what to do again about the guns in parks. The legislature did pass a bill to try to clarify that last year. I'm not sure, given some of the legal rulings that are coming down, that it is being clarified, and other legal matters that are being taken up. There's some concern now that this is going to perhaps allow guns to go to stadiums and parks, festivals, and other kind of ball games and things where alcohol is sold. Do the lawmakers need to go back and look at this bill one more time to try to get it right?
I understand from talking to other legislators, yes, I think we will go back to clarify that issue. It needs to be clarified for everyone, and I think we will try to go back and clarify that.
What kind of clarity would you like to see happen?
Well, I think it needs to be cleared exactly where, if you have a carry permit, where you can or cannot do that, and I think that needs to be clarified, whether it's in parks. And like you said, it came to be a gray area in parks, and when you have school children in the park, and all that needs to be clarified. And I'm looking to see how they come about doing that.
Now, let's move to another issue, health care. House Speaker Beth Harwell told reporters recently that she thought lawmakers would revisit Governor Haslam's Insure Tennessee health care program coming up in 2016. Now, the Senate's rejected that twice in its committees. Do you expect the Senate to be revisiting the program for some reason?
I do not. I don't think we will revisit it.
So really, what would you advise the House? If you guys aren't going to pass it, there's not much sense in them wasting their time.
I would advise them that it's probably not realistic for them to do it.
Now, another bill that has been pre-filed that has been quite a bit of controversy across the country has been the ruling by the Supreme Court to allow same-sex marriage. This would basically nullify that in Tennessee. Now, we've had fights about nullifying federal laws before, particularly on Obamacare and other things. Are you just tilting at windmills on this when you try to bring this issue up? Is this something the legislature really ought to waste its time on?
Well, of course, I'm for traditional marriage. That's what my always statement has been. But the court has ruled, and I think we'll see. We'll let the process go forward. I'm anxious to see how it goes through the Judiciary Committee and legally how it works. I'm not a lawyer, so I'd like to see how legally it works.
You feel strong enough about it that if the bill passed in the legislature and Governor Haslam vetoed it, you'd vote to override his veto?
I believe in traditional marriage. I do.
Governor Haslam has also said he hasn't made up his mind, but he seems to be leaning towards looking at privatizing the operation of many state buildings and other departments. Do you support that kind of an idea?
I'm interested in looking at it, Pat. To be honest with you, I've got some concerns about it. I want to see it brought forth to me. I want to see how we're going to go about doing it. I'm interested in looking at it. If we can make government more effective, more efficient, I'm all for it, but we got to make sure we're doing that.
One other sort of hot button issue that's come up, there are concerns that have been raised by parents and some lawmakers about the 7th grade curriculum that involves instruction regarding the Islamic religion. There's now a bill that says you can't teach anything in schools about a religion until they're in high school. The legislature seems to be getting a lot into school curriculum. Do you feel that your body really has that kind of expertise to get into those kind of educational issues?
Well, I think that we need to work with the Department of Education on that. I'm a big supporter of I want to go back to teaching Tennessee history, American history, and we need to teach world history. And I do think at my age, I learned the different religions, but we don't need to go into the depth of the religion. 2016,
I mentioned, is a re-election year. You'll have a decision to make about whether you want to run for re-election or if you may run for Congress again. What are you thinking about doing?
My plan is to run for re-election. That's my plan.
So probably not going to run for Congress again at this point?
That's correct.
And so you've already made that decision. You're not going to wait and make it in the spring when the qualifying deadline comes around?
I've made my decision to run for election, yeah.
Is in part that because there's already one candidate running against the current incumbent in the 4th District, Congressman Desjardins, and that candidate seems to be getting quite a bit of money, or you just decide you'd rather stay in the Senate?
I just decided I think my skills and my abilities would be better used here in the state of Tennessee.
So what else do you see coming up in the session, very briefly?
Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I think you thought about it. Always it revolves around revenue and money, and we'll see how that works. Transportation is going to be a big issue. That's one thing we're going to have to be discussing. Education issues are always higher ed. Right now we're talking about higher ed, and we had a hearing this week about higher ed.
Senator Tracy, thank you for coming on the show, and we'll look forward to having you back as the session begins.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the News Channel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary there. There's a new commentary posted every Friday afternoon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.